to a brand new edition of Grand Slam KBO. This is a midweek show, and from now on this particular show, we will talk about all of the amazing things about Korean baseball, not what goes on the field, but more the fan experience and what exists in the stands of every KBO ballpark in Korea. My name is Andrew Farrell.
And I am Brad Dennett. And you heard right, we are making a podcast somehow about everything that right now Korean baseball does not have. So welcome. Hope you enjoy.
Yeah, as you know from our Sunday edition of Grand Slam KBO, we basically review what's happened the previous week. We review the best upcoming series, and then we also talk about some of the major news stories in the KBO from the last 7 days or so, trades, new players coming in, anything really. But in terms of the midweek show, we are not going to be doing that. It's more talking to fans, talking to former players, hopefully talking to some current players too, journalists, and everybody who's involved in Korean baseball about what the experience is like of either watching a game here in Korea or even just playing a game here in Korea. It's something a little bit different from the weekend show.
100%. I mean, this is all about how, we found Korean baseball to be what it is, and how, I was a football supporter, loved my team in London, and suddenly I found myself in Cheongshul Stadium thinking that baseball was the silliest sport ever. Who cares if a guy can throw a ball? And now look, I mean, I'm almost as shocked as you are. Talking about baseball on a podcast, finding out everything that's special, it pretty much just hooked us in, and, we're going to talk about why.
So why are we talking about this then? What is the difference between this and a weekly show? Is there a particular type of audience we'd like to attract for this show? What are your thoughts on this?
I think the exact audience that we want to attract is us, maybe 2.5 years ago for me. I don't know how many years ago for you, to be completely honest. It's, getting to know the league, but also kind of like that. I don't know. I keep on thinking about fishing. I don't know why. Basketball, for some reason, all the players are fishing. So fishing's on my head. I suck at fishing, but it's on my mind. And the whole thing of fishing, you need your bait. I said you need your bait to kind of get that fish. And the experience and the atmosphere of KBO games, it's the bait. It's what makes it special. It's the seasoning on any meal. So that's why, at least I think, we are focusing on this. If you have a different idea, then maybe we've made a mistake.
But this is just our first show. It's like the pilot episode. It's just myself and Brad here giving our thoughts on what we are going to do for the upcoming season. And then, hopefully from week 2 onwards, we'll have somebody in our Grand Slam KBO studio here, Grand Slam KBO Towers, who can give us some of their insights on Korean baseball. The Sunday episodes, which I'm hoping you've all listened to at some point before. On that particular show, you can get all of the latest news. We talk about players. We talk about injuries, trades, new players coming in, players who are being fired, or players who are being released, and how the table looks. But as Brad was saying, on this particular show, the midweek edition of Grand Slam KBO, there'll be no conversation on things like that. But we are going to have our first foreign player of the week, the MVP of the week. And this was your idea. Do you want to tell us why you wanted to have like a foreign player MVP for the week?
Well, I mean, I view us, at least when we talk about this together, my knowledge of the KBO, as embarrassing as this may seem, I know players based on their numbers. 23, love that guy. 42, hate him, terrible. But when it does come to a lot of the players that are in the league right now, there's a lot of players for the Dinos, especially foreign players who I know from the MLB, who I can track their career because it's available to me. It's in my language. It's more accessible to me. So having a player of the week, a foreigner who we can focus on, see how they got here, how they're doing, how they're adjusting, and then, hopefully one day have them on the show. It just feeds into it all quite nicely.
Yeah, there's some great foreign players here down the years. Obviously, Eric Thames is up there. Bradley Hyder, who's normally on the Sunday edition of the show. a big fan of Eric Thames. That's cool. I always liked Brett Pill when he was with the Kia Tigers. Pretty clutch. I was kind of sad for him that they didn't win the championship when he was there, but Roger Bernardino was a really good pickup after him. Then there's obviously been so many great pitchers too. Some teams just seem to, I'm not going to say they look out. Obviously the scouting is really good. But throughout my time in Korea, there's always been some teams that seem to recruit better or stronger when it comes to their foreign players. And I love seeing the guys who are staying here for 2 years or 3 years. Mel Rojas Jr., who was the official KBO MVP for the month of June, he first moved to Suwon in 2017. He's still here. He's only 30. So this is obviously a guy who's got great stories about KBO, clearly loves playing over here. And he's the type of guy that we really want to talk about in the show.
He was actually the first foreign player that I saw play. As I alluded to earlier, the first game I watched was at Champshaw. It was between the Kia Tigers and... No, actually, I got that memory completely wrong. Let's not remember that memory. You see, as soon as we start talking about baseball on the field, everything gets jumbled up. So let me just say, I remember watching him for the KT Wiz, and I was just like, wow, he can hit a ball. And that's as in-depth as I'll get about my analysis of his play. But I mean, dear Lord, can he hit a ball? He can hit a ball so well that some might say he's probably hitting a ball the best in the league right now. And I mean, yeah, that's quite a compliment.
Yeah, sure. So that's a new part of our show. That's a segment we're going to have every week from now on, which foreign player played the best for the last week. And we're not going to be excluding Korean players, obviously, in this. The vast majority of the players clearly are Korean in the KBO, but we just want to give some sort of an acknowledgement to the foreign players who are playing over here, because I think we know that a lot of the newer KBO fans, those who have picked up the sport over the wintertime because MLB isn't on and the KBO, thankfully, is broadcast on ESPN, that I think a lot of the international viewers of KBO will obviously know a lot more of these foreign players than they will a lot of the Korean players. So, I mean, obviously we hope that Pak Young-ho still has a great season, and Trey Young-woo for the Kia Tigers is a big season, et cetera, but we'll just be having a foreign player MVP for every week.
I must admit, I loved how you put that so softly of, watching the KBO during the winter time. There's been nothing else. There's been no global incident that happened during
all this. Yeah.
But yes.
So that's our show. I'm on Twitter. We're both on Twitter. I'm on Twitter at Grand Slam KBO, and you'll still find me on the Sunday podcast too. And Brad, what is your Twitter handle?
Embarrassingly as it is, I actually just went on my phone to find out. I can't say I'm the most well-versed on this. My Twitter handle is probably _Brad. Simple.
Probably _Brad. The guess it's him.
Probably _Brad. That actually came from sport as well. When I used to play sport, if someone did something good, I always wanted to say, well, it's probably Brad. And then when I started new sport, it became probably not Brad. So it's like, well, who let us down? I'd be like, oof, probably not Brad. But yeah, so that's my handle. If you see anything, probably something Brad, it's probably me.
Great stuff. Okay. So that's what we're hoping to do for this year. As we said, talk about what goes on behind the scenes, off the field, basically, in Korean baseball, players, former players, journalists, and fans. And we hope to start that next week with our first interview on the new edition of Grand Slam KBO's midweek show. If you want to come on, of course, please just let us know. We're always happy to talk to anybody who's got a story to tell about Korean baseball. If you're watching this at all hours of the morning in a different part of the world, what makes you do that? I'd love to know what makes somebody wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch LG Twins losing again to the Doosan Bears. What could possibly inspire you to do that?
I would say insomnia.
Or not a job that doesn't have regular 9 to 5 hours. It's amazing how many people are watching this league at all hours of the morning in North America, especially, because I remember at the beginning of the season, the games were broadcast live, and then they would have a replay later on in the day. I don't know if that is still the case. I don't watch the games on ESPN. Just watch them over here on Queen Television. So if people are only given the opportunity to watch the games live, that is a really, really big commitment. And it's really cool that they're willing to do that. Like, even for the sports I like, I almost never bother to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to watch a game. You'd hope that you could record it, or it's going to be on later.
I mean, the whole recording thing for me just got lost just because I know that I would wake up to messages. As I kind of said earlier, I'm a big football fan. My team's Arsenal. When I was back home, if Arsenal were playing Spurs, I would be screaming. I'm just silly. I would scream myself silly. I would be sick the next day. I'd be screaming so loud. Now, when you wake up at 4:30 in the morning and you make yourself a cup of tea and you prop your neck up so that you don't fall asleep, it just doesn't have that same thing. So to have that drive, as you say, to just tune into a sport, a new environment, a new country, new players, new teams, it just shows how the love for sport can make people do crazy, crazy things.
Look, you mentioned this earlier on. I've seen a lot of people talking about it on Twitter and my KBO. You're really excited about this. Conan O'Brien's love of the Doosan Bears. And this is part of the reason why we want to do like another show, because there's clearly a market for that type of Korean baseball. It's not just about what goes on in the field. There's also obviously a lot of people are so interested in just almost the wackiness or the brilliance or the excitement, the mystery of Korean baseball. What is this Conan O'Brien segment that everybody's talking about?
It was released a couple of days ago. Conan O'Brien and Andy. Don't know who Andy is. I'm pretty sure I've seen him in some sort of comedic thing. But yeah, they were talking about this supposed international thing that's happening, and how it's let them bond over a certain sport in a certain country. And of course, it's talking about the players, it's talking about their actions, it's talking about the songs. Halfway through, they get into a full rendition of a Doosan song, which, I mean, my girlfriend and me, would catch ourselves, humming it on a random Tuesday when baseball hadn't been played for months. It's about the catchiness. And I mean, it's so perfectly summed up. If you haven't seen it, please watch it, because I mean, it made me feel like I could be friends with Conan O'Brien, and that maybe we could just have a quick sing along. But yeah, absolutely just incredible stuff. You guys need to watch it if you haven't.
Yeah, cool. So that's the audience that Korean baseball has reached this year, thankfully, and it's cool. But MLB is coming back. The window of opportunity to get more and more fans to watch this league is closing. It's closing dramatically. We just have to hope that a lot of the people who picked up KBO in the springtime, late winter, early spring, will stay on board. I hope they do. Do you think we're likely to do that?
Likely to keep fans? I think so. I mean, and I say that based on my general hope, and this kind of might, segue into our next topic. But if fans have kind of stuck by the KBO with zero atmosphere, then they're in for a treat when things start kicking back up. If they do hopefully kick back up, it's what got me involved in the first place. So if they've stuck around for what they've seen so far, then it's only going to get better. I've heard people talk about how one team used teddy bears in their crowd and how incredible that was. I mean, that's just the start of the quirkiness of this league.
When I watch football as well, soccer, like you do, and when I watch games in England or Spain or Germany, since the leagues over there, the Bundesliga, the Premier League, or whatever, has returned, I don't know if a lot of those ideas that I see filling up the stands in soccer stadiums in the United Kingdom or elsewhere in Europe has come from Korea, but it looks like it did. A lot of the stuff looks like they just copied what happened in Korea in terms of, like putting in teddy bears or putting in murals or like cut out logos of. Did you see like Leeds United had one of Osama bin Laden? They had no idea that they had Osama bin Laden cut out cardboard.
When was this?
Not too long ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it kind of rivals the FC Seoul scandal of sex doll. So somebody at Leeds United put Osama bin Laden inside the boat. But I don't know, maybe I'm giving too much credit to KBO and the K-League, soccer over here too, but it seems like a lot of the ideas that teams from different sports got in Europe and probably elsewhere, it kind of looks like it came from Korea. Maybe it didn't, but it just looks that way.
I would say most of the focus on what to do next. It's kind of like if you have an older sibling. I don't know if you do. Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have an older sister. I have a younger brother.
As soon as well, then maybe your younger brother did this, but as soon as my older sibling would do something, I would just be watching and I'd be kind of measuring it like, okay, if she's doing that, okay, she's going to fail terribly, but what can I do? It feels like that's what's happening with the KBO and with the Korea in general. Everyone's watching to see their next move. And if it goes bad, they're like, whew, well, I didn't try that. But Korea's doing well, especially with the sporting events. You know, KBO's kept on going. There's been no major shocks with people testing positive. And it seems like in the NBA, people test positive every 5 seconds. So, you know, most of the things I see on there, it's scary, especially because it makes you wonder what type of lifestyles are they living during a pandemic? Why are they not just staying inside? But yeah, I mean, obviously there's been certain social things happening in America where people need to actually make themselves heard. But other than that, Korea is doing it right in terms of sport, in terms of how to present games in a way that's safe. But once again, that does kind of lead to the KBO kind of ripping out a part of what makes it special. You know, someone with a crazy hairstyle just cutting it all off completely. That's what KBO has done by losing its fans. And with their new, you know, plans that they had to kind of introduce 30% of the stadium, but by cutting out almost everything that those fans can do, it's a little bit scary.
So a couple of weeks ago, as we talked in the Sunday edition, the KBO hoped to have fans back on a Friday, 2 weeks ago, maybe. Friday, 2 weeks ago.
July 1st, wasn't it?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago then. It didn't work out, and it just went silent. Just suddenly, it just disappeared. And then a lot of people were on different apps and websites trying to get some tickets, and they couldn't. But it didn't seem like an official announcement. It just didn't happen. Like, the games just went ahead the Friday that the fans are supposed to be back in. And then since then, there's been almost no talk about it, from what I can see. Very, very, very little discussion on when this could happen again. So they did have some ideas that they wanted to introduce to bring fans back in. And there was so much complaints about them. I was kind of surprised. I really don't care if I'm not able to drink in my seat, or if I can't sit beside a friend directly beside them. I don't care if there's a gap between me and that person there's a gap between the next person. Do you really care? If you were able to go to Jam Shell on Saturday to watch the Doosan Bears play, would you care if you couldn't sit beside your girlfriend or some of your friends and you couldn't drink at your seat? Would it really spoil the whole occasion? Could you put up with it for a year?
That's the whole reason I buy the ticket, to sit next to my girlfriend. It's the only opportunity we get to sit next to each other. Now that we're separated by 3 other seats, it's just heartbreaking. No, I mean, it's not so much of a killer. I must admit, something that's big in Korean baseball is the singing. I'm not much of a singer. You know, even if I'm alone, I kind of have to check, you know, if anyone's in the house, just double check, triple check to make sure that I can then start singing. When it's in front of 9,000 people, I kind of do tend to be on the shy side. So I'm not too worried about it, but at the same time, it's a strange thing to imagine, to go to a baseball stadium and there being no songs, and there's people drinking, you know, vitamin water, and I don't even know what snack they would have. But would it ruin the game? No. I'm a little bit different from you in that I think it would be a strange experience. You know, maybe it's like the second date, or like, you know, your first date with an ex, and you don't know really where you are. Like, you had certain understandings beforehand, but now you're like, do we still have our secret handshake? So I'm a little bit nervous to what it would be, especially because I don't think it would go so smoothly in the beginning, especially with fans here. They are passionate for their teams. You know, people love their teams, as in any sport. And it would be quite some scenes to see someone, start singing and the police just take them out. But yeah, it would definitely be an experience.
What would you propose then? I know like neither of us are doctors, we're not scientists, we're not virologists, we're nothing. We're just working over in Korea, or completely unrelated.
Thanks.
I have no good ideas for how fans can go back. None. Because I just don't understand. I saw this really good graph that was released. Somebody posted this online recently. It was from Texas, and it would kind of ranked from very, very low to very high chances of, or like where you're most at risk of COVID-19. And sporting arena was at the top. It was right there. It was up there with going to a concert and going to a nightclub, let's say. Whereas playing golf was considered obviously low, moderate, or extremely low chance. And in the going to the beach might be in the middle of all that. And there's a risk, but it's not really that high. So given that there is a lot of research to show that going to a busy ballpark or football stadium or rugby stadium, whatever it is, definitely increases your chances of getting COVID-19. What solution would you have to bring fans in, bearing in mind all this?
Well, it kind of sounded. I was waiting for you to suggest that people are playing baseball at beaches and golf grounds, which I was going to get quite excited for. Something, at least in Korea is technologically advanced. It has the resources. It wouldn't be hard to have some sort of projection behind certain, parts of the stadium, or at least in the grounds where, who knows, maybe we have a 5,000 people Zoom call and you have this incredibly distracting montage of fans watching the game from the comfort of their own homes. Maybe that's something that can happen. It might cause pitchers to, get incredibly dizzy and throw up, but there's something that can be done. I think the cardboard cutouts, maybe this is a controversial opinion, I think they're a little bit stupid. Especially because I find that if I'm watching someone, about to step up to the plate, I'm kind of just looking at the faces behind. And instead of, watching a particular strike or a swing or whatever it is, I'll just talk to the person next to me about, well, you see that guy's hair? Looks a little bit strange, doesn't it? So cardboard cutouts for me, a little bit lame. Is there anything that you've been taken to that's kind of been a stand-in for fans?
No, nothing. I mean, I do like how it doesn't exist in KBO, but in the K League and across Europe, they do have the fake cheering or the examples of cheering from the past, and they've inserted that into the game. It's interesting enough to hear that for a while, but honestly, I don't really care. When I watch a lot of baseball on TV over here, and I listen to it with the commentary on. And it sounds weird. I love being able to hear the sound of the ball off the bat, though, and the catcher getting one like really clean. It's really cool. And then you see a guy chasing down a fly ball, and it's the sound of it coming off his glove is really cool. In terms of like what they've done and with banners, or is it like cardboard cutout stuff? I really don't care. It doesn't mean a huge amount to me. I really appreciate the effort that they're putting in. Especially the NC Dinos, they seem to have tapped into their international fan base really hard. They've done a really good job with that. But it's not for me. It's either we're at the stadium or I'm just going to watch it on TV. But the other stuff, I said, I appreciate the effort they've done, but it means nothing to me.
I mean, the KBO has definitely pushed to include people at home. I don't know if you've seen, but when you actually go online, at least in Korea, to watch the game, you can choose a dedicated stream that focuses on the cheerleaders and the hype men, and you can just watch them. You don't even have to watch the game. It's an experience in itself. If you think you know baseball.
Yeah, I think the commentary's changed a little bit as well. Now, maybe it hasn't, and I'm just imagining this, but I think often, and it's totally natural, I've done commentary before, and you get swept up in the noise or the emotion of what's going on, emotion of what's going on in the stadium. But I think now, without the fans, I think the commentary teams are They're able maybe just to see the ball a little bit better. They're not kind of wrapped up in the emotion. Like they think that ball is going to clear the fences when you know it's not going to. But I think that initial burst of excitement when the ball comes off the bat, I think they don't have that at the moment because the noise isn't there as much. I think you're probably getting, I don't know, maybe there's nothing to back this up, but I think you might be getting slightly better commentary of games and as a result of that, because they're not getting.
I think you're definitely getting more commentary. Some MLB teams have started to do inter-squad matches, and I've been watching a couple of those. And you definitely get some insights that you wouldn't have if it was a normal game. I think it's also calling on the commentators to really dig deep because they're having to reach, new ideas, talk about new things, talk to new people. I've heard, commentators now reading tweets, live tweeting as the game's going. It's going to be interesting to see where this goes. I mean, if anyone has any ideas for what they think could be done, we'll give you a budget of $100 million. See if you can come up with anything worthwhile. But yes, the only thing that does make me nervous about this as a sports fan is when. When will sports be what we knew a year and a half ago? When will just general outings to a stadium not include, a pint of hand sanitizer and 3 squirts of beer? It's going to be an interesting time.
I guess I'm fortunate enough. I have seen live sports in 2020 and not in January, but I saw live sport in February. I went to see 2 soccer games here. FC Seoul playing on Tuesday night with Bradley Hyder. There's the other podcast. We went to see an Asian Champions League game. And that was just around the time COVID-19 was beginning to spread into Korea. There was a couple of signs up inside Seoul World Cup Stadium, but there was no hand sanitizer, there was no mask. It was very much we're not sure what's going on here, but this doesn't look good. But 3 weeks later, maybe, I went to the Suwon World Cup Stadium to see the Suwon Blue Wings against Vissel Kobe in an Asian Champions League game. And that was the last, as far as I know, I'm 90% sure it is, that was the last live game broadcast in Korea. That was the last live game in Korea with fans added. That was on February the 19th. And I think it was that day when the whole Daegu situation kind of, really exploded. We had to get our temperature taken and we had to fill out a form and we had to have hand sanitizer. And obviously if it's above 37.5, you can't enter the stadium. You must have a mask, all these type of things. And it's really bizarre. And then you go into the stadium and the masks are off, and everybody's huddled together. But in order to get into the stadium, you had to follow these rules. And that could be what we're looking at when we go back in. But as I said, it makes you nervous. Me too. I don't know when this is going to happen. So look, let's just hope for the best, like obviously it sounds so vague, but let's just hope for the best. But I am pessimistic of our chances of seeing live sport here, definitely before September, definitely. This year, I'm not too close. I'd be surprised if we get to go to a ballpark or a soccer stadium this year.
Likewise.
Right. Well, that's our first show done for this midweek one. As we said, we will hopefully have some guests on starting next week, and we can share our experiences of what makes Korean baseball so fun, and they can do exactly the same thing for us. And I'm looking forward to that.
I love how we managed to end on such a positive note for our first version of this. We're probably not going to see sport as we know it for the next foreseeable, 10 years.
But stay tuned to our show.
Exactly, where we talk about watching sport in the stadium. Sounds like fun.
Cool. Well, that's it for us. We'll be back next week, and we will have our first midweek edition of Grand Slam KBO for you then. A tidier show, and we hope you can stay tuned and listen to that. I'm Andrew Farrell, and you can find me on Twitter at Grand Slam KBO or on YouTube and Facebook too. And I've been joined today by...
I'm Brad Dennett. You can find me on Twitter at probably_Brad. And bye-bye.
You'll probably end up seeing a lot of Brad Dennett on Twitter for the next 8 months or so. Any baseball player in Korea is going to get tagged in humorous post from here on in. So cool. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.